Melissa stood frozen in the doorway, her heart pounding in her chest as the harsh words echoed through the dimly lit room. She had anticipated anger, maybe even a cold reception, but not this torrent of venom. The older woman's voice, her supposed grandmother, cut deep, each sentence laden with resentment and years of suppressed bitterness. "And yet you dare to come here?" The elderly woman spat, her sharp eyes narrowing as she stood behind the desk, hands trembling with fury. "Are you thinking to come seek shelter in my place?" Melissa's breath caught in her throat. She had once believed this place, this family, was her home. She had been raised under the Young family's roof, taught their ways, molded into their image. But now, the truth hit her like a hammer. She was nothing to them, just a pawn. "I listened to you," the woman continued, her voice rising, "because we thought you were the Young's legitimate family. But our shitty engagement is already over. Don't you ever show that ugly face of yours in front of me again. I've been sick of it for many years now." Melissa clenched her fists by her sides, fighting back tears. Her mind swirled with a mix of shock and betrayal. She had done everything, played the perfect granddaughter, even if she had felt like an outsider from the beginning. Wasn't that enough? Why? Her voice trembled as she finally spoke, her desperation seeping through. "Why did you do this? Why must you betray me?" The older woman sneered, her expression twisting into something cruel. "Because you are not my legitimate granddaughter. You can't be so disrespectful and barge into a meeting room like that. How could you cast me away so easily like this? Didn't I do everything a good granddaughter should have done, despite all the cold treatment you've shown me?" The words stung, but what came next shattered any lingering hope Melissa had clung to. "That's right. You're not actually a Young. They never even considered you as their real family. You were just a pawn to them all along. Keep that in mind from now on." Melissa felt the ground shift beneath her. She wasn't a real Young? Her entire identity, the life she thought was hers, it had been a lie. Her stomach churned as anger bubbled up inside her, twisting with the pain of abandonment. "Make them all pay for casting you away." The woman's voice dropped to a harsh whisper. "For treating you like some slave they could easily discard when they no longer had a use for you. Once they are done using you, make them regret it. All of them." The words sank into Melissa's soul, darkening her thoughts, fueling her rage. How could they throw her away after all she had done? How could they betray her like this? And how are you going to make them regret what they did to you? The woman's tone turned mocking. "Do you have enough money and power to bring them all down?" Melissa's eyes burned with unshed tears, but her determination blazed stronger than ever. "I don't have enough money or power right now," she whispered, her voice low but resolute. "But I will find a way. I will bring them all to their knees. I'll make them beg." The woman's smirk deepened, her eyes gleaming with dark satisfaction. "I will do everything, anything, to make them all regret," Melissa continued, her voice growing steadier. "Even if I have to sell my soul to the devil." A silence hung in the air for a moment, heavy and charged. The older woman leaned in closer, her voice cold as ice. "Be careful what you wish for, Mississippi." Melissa stood there, trembling, but with a fierce new resolve burning inside her. She had lost everything, her family, her identity, her place in the world, but she would rebuild. She would rise again, stronger and more ruthless than before. And one day, they would all regret casting her aside. Evangeline stood in the grand conference room, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief. The weight of her grandfather's words hung in the air like a heavy cloud. This wasn't just any meeting. This was her life unraveling before her eyes. "What are you doing here, Evangeline?" Her grandfather, Mr. Young, asked, his voice cold and authoritative. Her heart raced, confusion swirling in her mind. "What do you mean by that, grandfather? I should be the one asking that question. I am the CEO of this company, and you're asking me what I'm doing here?" Her words were strong, but inside, she was reeling. She had spent years dedicating herself to the family business, pushing the company to new heights. How could he speak to her this way? "Evangeline," Mr. Young said, his tone softening but still firm, "leave this place. I will talk to you once we're home." You can't be so disrespectful and barge into a meeting room like that. Evangeline's hands trembled at her sides. Grandfather, I am utterly confused. I demand an explanation right here, right now. Why are you doing this? How could you ask me to leave? I am the CEO. For goodness sake. The room fell silent as Mr. Young's expression hardened. Evangeline, he said, his voice like ice, as of today, you will step down from your position as this company's CEO. The board of directors has already chosen your replacement. Her breath hitched. What did you say? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. You're stripping me of my position? I am the one who made this company soar to its current heights. Why? Why the demotion? Mr. Young looked away, his voice distant. Go home, Eva. We'll talk later. But Evangeline was far from done. I demand an explanation right now, grandfather. Tell me what the hell is happening. And then, the truth came crashing down like a tidal wave. Because you are not my legitimate granddaughter. Her world shattered. She blinked, stunned. What? I'm not a legitimate member of the Young family. Her grandfather's face was unreadable. The DNA test came out yesterday. You are not related to us by blood. I don't know how it happened, but the investigation is still going on. Evangeline's chest tightened. No, she whispered. You're lying. There must be a mistake. There is no mistake, Eva, her grandfather said, his voice resigned. I did the test more than once. Now leave this place and wait for me at home. So, because I'm not related to you by blood, she said, her voice rising with anger. You're saying I'm no longer qualified to be the company's CEO? What kind of nonsense is this? Her grandfather sighed, almost weary. Eva, don't worry. You will still work as one of the directors. You will assist your sister. And then it clicked. Oh, she said, her voice dripping with bitterness. So my dear younger sister is the one who will be replacing me? Eva, he began, but she cut him off. Forget it, Grand. Oh, Mr. Young. Her voice was icy. Listen, Mr. Chairman, without me, XY Corporation will crumble into pieces. Mark my words. She stormed out of the building, her mind racing. The coldness she had felt from her parents, the distance, the lack of warmth, everything made sense now. They had known all along. She wasn't their legitimate daughter. She had been nothing more than a tool, a pawn in their grand scheme. Her phone buzzed in her hand, but when she saw Julian's name, her heart sank. She needed to talk to him. He was the only one who could possibly understand, who might still care. But when she arrived at his house, he didn't even look surprised to see her. His face twisted in disdain. What the hell are you doing here? Barging into my house like that? Evangeline stood frozen, hurt blooming in her chest. Julian, please, I need to talk. Get out. Eva, he snapped. Or, do you want me to drag you out? Her mind reeled. We're over, Eva. I heard the news. You're not a legitimate daughter of the Young family. You're nothing but a nameless bumpkin right now. And yet you dare to come here? Are you thinking to seek shelter in my place? Each word felt like a knife to her heart. She had loved him, trusted him, and now, like everyone else, he was casting her aside. Our shitty engagement is already over, Julian continued, his tone laced with contempt. So don't you ever show that ugly face of yours in front of me again. I've been sick of it for years now. Tears threatened to spill from Evangeline's eyes, but she held them back, her pride refusing to let him see her broken. No, she muttered under her breath. Don't you dare cry, Eva. Not in front of this asshole. Julian sneered. Oh, is that so? Evangeline's voice trembled with rage as she spoke. Listen to me, Julian. One day, I will make sure that you too will die in utter regret. I promise you that. And with that, she turned on her heel, her heart heavy with betrayal but fueled by a fierce, burning desire for revenge. They had all used her, discarded her like she was nothing. But Evangeline was far from done. She would rise again, and when she did, they would all pay for what they had done. Evangeline sat in the dimly lit corner of the upscale bar, her glass of whiskey nearly empty. The ice had melted, diluting what was left, but the sharp burn from the alcohol still lingered on her lips. Her heart felt heavier than the weight of the glass in her hand. She stared at the amber liquid, lost in her thoughts, as the sting of her grandfather's betrayal echoed through her mind. Why? She whispered to herself, her voice trembling. Why did you do this? Why must you betray me? For years, Evangeline had sacrificed everything to be the perfect granddaughter, the perfect businesswoman. She had poured her heart and soul into the company, believing that one day it would be hers, that she would finally earn her family's approval, their love. She had worked tirelessly, pushing herself beyond her limits, hoping that maybe, just maybe, they would see her worth. But it had all been in vain. How could they cast me away so easily? Her voice broke, but she forced herself to keep her composure. Didn't I do everything a good granddaughter should have done, despite all the cold treatment you showed me? The bartender noticed her empty glass and approached. You seem like you're not used to drinking something so strong. Maybe you'd like something more suited to a lady? Evangeline shook her head, a bitter smile crossing her lips. No, I'm all right. This drink is fine. I'm here to get drunk to my heart's content for the first time in my life. She swirled the liquid in her glass, her thoughts racing. She had never allowed herself moments like this. Never let herself indulge in simple pleasures. She had always been too focused on the next goal, the next achievement. But now, sitting in this bar, she realized just how much she had missed out on. Look at you, Evangeline, she muttered under her breath. You worked so hard for so many long years. You never experienced the normal things people enjoy. Why? Because all you ever thought about was that damn company. The company you thought would be yours forever. Her childhood had been a blur of responsibilities and expectations. While other kids had fun, went to parties, and lived carefree lives, Evangeline had buried herself in books, chasing degrees and accolades. All to impress a family that never truly cared. And now, after all her efforts, they had tossed her aside like she meant nothing. You never had a normal childhood or teenage life, she whispered. All because you were desperate to prove yourself, to please them. But in the end, what did it matter? Evangeline clenched her fists, her nails digging into her palms. She had spent countless nights at the office, working late, sacrificing her health and happiness. She had pushed herself to the brink, all for a family that had never considered her their own. And now, they had the audacity to demote her, to give her position to their beloved legitimate daughter. The thought of it made her sick. And Julian, she whispered, her heart aching. Even he had abandoned her. He must have seen me as some toy, someone to play with until he found something better. The bartender refilled her glass, but Evangeline barely noticed. Her mind was racing, her thoughts filled with anger and betrayal. That's right, she muttered bitterly. I'm not even a Young. I was never really one of them. Not by blood, not by love. She let out a hollow laugh. They never considered me part of their family. I was just a pawn, something to use until I wasn't needed anymore. But now, they're done with me. They've discarded me like I'm nothing. Her eyes narrowed as she stared at her reflection in the glass. But I won't let them get away with this. I'll make them all pay. They treated me like a slave, something they could cast away whenever they wanted. But I'll make sure they regret every moment of it. Her voice grew colder, filled with a determination she hadn't felt before. Do I have enough money? Enough power to bring them down? She smirked, shaking her head. Not yet. But I will. I'll find a way. I'll do whatever it takes. The bartender glanced at her with concern, but Evangeline ignored him. She had made up her mind. They had taken everything from her, her family, her position, her dignity. But she wasn't done. Not yet. One day, she whispered, raising her glass. One day, I'll make them all beg for mercy. And with that, she downed the last of her drink, the fire in her chest now fueled by something far stronger than alcohol, her unrelenting thirst for revenge. Evangeline sat back, her eyes still burning with the raw sting of betrayal. But there was a new resolve simmering beneath her anger. Across from her, the man she had been speaking to leaned in slightly, his voice low, teasing. And how exactly do you plan to make them regret what they did to you? He asked, a smirk playing on his lips. Do you have enough money? Enough power to bring them all down? Evangeline's grip tightened on her drink, her knuckles white against the glass. The reality of her situation weighed on her, but so did the fire inside her. She didn't have the means right now, but she wasn't about to let that stop her. I don't have enough money or power right now, she admitted, her voice steady, though her heart was pounding. But I will. I'll find a way to bring them all to their knees. I'll make them beg. Her eyes darkened with determination. I'll do everything, anything if I have to. I'll make them regret every moment they ever look down on me, even if I have to sell my soul to the devil. The man's smirk widened, his gaze sharp. Be careful what you wish for, miss, he warned, his tone almost playful. A certain devil might just grant your wish and claim your soul in exchange. Evangeline raised her chin, her voice laced with sarcasm but also resolve. If that devil is here, she said with a defiant smirk of her own, then introduce him to me. I'd like to make a deal. Her companion leaned back, studying her with curiosity. How brave, he mused. But I guess it's because you're drunk right now. Maybe you should wait until you're sober, miss. Once I introduce him, there's no turning back. Evangeline's eyes flashed with defiance, her voice cutting through the dim atmosphere of the bar. I'm not drunk. And where is he? Tell me. She leaned forward, her gaze unwavering. Don't worry. Even if he asks me to go to hell with him, I'll gladly follow. As long as he can give me everything I want. There was a beat of silence before the man leaned in close, his eyes gleaming with something dark and mysterious. All right, he said softly, his voice almost a whisper. Your wish is my command. He stood, casting a long shadow over her as he straightened his jacket. I will gladly introduce you to him. Evangeline's heart raced, but she wasn't afraid. She felt the weight of her past, the cold treatment, the betrayal, and the crushing humiliation, and she welcomed whatever was to come next. If it meant getting her revenge, if it meant seeing them all beg for mercy, she would pay whatever price was asked of her. As the man turned to leave, Evangeline's gaze followed him. She was ready. Evangeline stirred, blinking her eyes open to an unfamiliar sight. For a moment, she couldn't quite place where she was, her mind foggy from the events of the previous night. As she sat up, the grandness of the room came into focus. High ceilings, intricate chandeliers, and an air of opulence that made her heart skip a beat. Where am I? She whispered, her voice catching in her throat. Her eyes darted around, taking in the sheer extravagance of the place. Am I dreaming? She looked down at herself, half expecting to find some evidence of the nightmare she felt trapped in. But her body felt untouched, no sign of harm. Nothing happened to me, right? She muttered, patting her arms and legs, half in relief and half in disbelief. The memory of last night was still hazy, but she remembered the stranger, his cryptic words, and the overwhelming need to escape her life. Did that man bring me here? Panic started to creep in as she scrambled out of the plush bed, her feet hitting the cold marble floor. She let out a soft curse under her breath, catching a whiff of herself. Oh God, I stink like the sewers, she groaned, running her fingers through her hair, feeling the sticky residue of last night's turmoil. Evangeline took a deep breath and steadied herself. Her eyes roamed the room again, and this time they caught on to more details. The towering marble steps leading down to what seemed like an endless hall, ornate bronze handrails winding like serpents, and chandeliers dripping in crystals. Everything screamed luxury, but of a different era. Oh my, am I inside an ancient chateau? She muttered, all mixing with confusion. The grandeur, the vintage details, bronze statues, ballrooms fit for royalty, made her heart race. Where on earth am I? She patted across the room, her fingers brushing against the velvet curtains that framed a large window. The view outside showed sprawling gardens, a scene straight out of the 1800s. Her breath hitched, realizing the magnitude of the place. This is definitely a house built in the 1800s. No way. She caught sight of an elaborate fireplace in the corner of the room, flames flickering gently beneath the carved stone mantel. It looked like something from an old European manor, elegant yet imposing. Evangeline shook her head, still trying to make sense of how she had ended up in a place like this. How did I? A voice cut through the quiet, smooth and mocking. Escaping already, little kitten? Evangeline froze, her pulse quickening. She turned slowly, her eyes locking onto the figure standing by the door. It was him, the man from last night, his presence just as dark and commanding as she remembered. He leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching her with an amused expression. Her heart pounded in her chest as she tried to piece together what had happened. What kind of deal had she really made last night? And why did this strange, enchanting place feel like both a dream and a trap all at once? Evangeline froze at the voice, her heart skipping a beat as she spun around. The man from last night was standing there, leaning against the doorway, his expression laced with amusement. "Escaping already, little kitten?" he drawled, his voice as smooth as velvet, but with an underlying edge that made her uneasy. Her eyes narrowed, her confusion deepening. "You, where am I?" she demanded, her voice shaky despite her best efforts to stay composed. "In hell," he replied casually, as if that answer should make perfect sense. Evangeline blinked, momentarily thrown off by his tone. "What?" She stared at him, trying to figure out if he was being serious or simply mocking her. Was he trying to be funny? "You wanted to meet the devil, didn't you?" His voice dropped slightly, taking on a teasing lilt as he echoed her drunken words from the night before. The memory rushed back, her desperation, the alcohol, her reckless words. "Even if I have to sell my soul to the devil." She had said it, hadn't she? Evangeline's cheeks flushed with embarrassment. Ugh, how humiliating, she thought, cringing at her own words. He seemed to sense her discomfort, his grin widening. "Easy there, pet. Don't call me that. I'm not your pet," she snapped, trying to reclaim some dignity, but her voice faltered. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was in way over her head. "You're being too serious, kitten," he chuckled. "Loosen up a bit." Evangeline clenched her fists, taking a step back. "I'm leaving," she announced, her voice sharper than she intended. "Thank you, and sorry for the trouble I caused." But before she could turn toward the door, he blocked her path with a casual, predatory grace. "Wait," he said, his eyes gleaming with something dark. "If you think a simple thank you and sorry is enough for me, I'm afraid I'll have to forward you my apologies." "What are you talking about?" she asked, suddenly wary. He tilted his head, his smile never fading. "Sorry to disappoint you, little kitten, but this devil won't be satisfied just by that alone. Especially not after all the things you did." Her heart sank. "What do you mean, things I did? What did I do?" He leaned in slightly, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating off him, and whispered, "It seems you've yet to remember what you did." "Huh?" Evangeline felt a chill run down her spine. I don't remember," she admitted, panic creeping into her voice. What had she done? She had only wanted to escape, to drown her sorrows in oblivion. He straightened up and smirked. "Fine then. I guess I'll have to show you some evidence to convince you that I'm not simply making things up." "Evidence?" Her stomach churned with anxiety. What could he possibly be talking about? With a snap of his fingers, they were suddenly moving, outside, heading toward a sleek, black car. She hadn't even noticed how they got there, but before she could process it, he opened the door and motioned for her to get in. "Careful," he said, his tone still dripping with amusement as he climbed in beside her. "We're here." Her head spun as she tried to make sense of it all. "Where's the devil?" she asked, half frantic. "You said you're going to bring me to meet the devil." He chuckled, a low, dark sound that made her skin crawl. "Are you saying this car of mine is the devil's?" He mocked. "How adorable." Evangeline glared at him, her frustration boiling over. "You're trying to fool me, aren't you?" "I am not, miss," he said, his eyes gleaming. "It's just that the devil doesn't like talking with anyone drunk. So, I'm going to send you home for now." "No." "I told you. I'm not drunk," she argued, her desperation growing. "Take me to him. Now." But he ignored her, his voice calm and controlled. "What's your address? Or, is there anyone I can call to pick you up?" "There's no one," Evangeline whispered, the weight of her isolation crashing down on her. "I don't want to go home. I have no one to call." Her voice broke, betraying her vulnerability. She couldn't go back. Not after everything. "This is why you must bring me to the devil now," she insisted, her desperation clear in her eyes. "I can't waste any more time." The man paused, studying her for a long moment. Then, with a sigh, he slipped into the driver's seat. "All right, now drive," she demanded, but he hesitated, looking at her with a curious expression. "What are you waiting for? Could it be that you're waiting for a bribe?" She snapped, her frustration bubbling over. His expression darkened as she leaned closer to him, the smell of her perfume mixing with the scent of desperation. "You smell so good," she whispered, her words a dangerous flirtation. "Stop that," he warned, his voice low, a dark edge creeping into it. "Or else you'll regret it." But Evangeline wasn't thinking clearly anymore, her desperation clouding her judgment. She leaned in closer, and in an instant his demeanor shifted. Now his voice was calm, but there was a cold, predatory tone to it. "Now you've done it, little kitten," he said, his eyes darkening. He revved the engine, the car lurching forward. "All right," he said, his tone final. "Since you were so hell-bent on going, I'll bring you to hell now, pet. You've really left me no choice." Evangeline groaned as she sat up, her head pounding from the remnants of last night's alcohol. "Oh, goodness, Eva, now you've really gone and done it," she muttered, rubbing her temples. The sharp throbbing in her skull was a cruel reminder that alcohol, while temporarily numbing her pain, always came back to bite harder. She glanced around the lavish room. Everything screamed luxury, the expensive drapery, the ornate furniture, the grandness of it all. "What is this place?" she wondered, feeling a mixture of awe and confusion. Had that strange man from last night brought her here? Her heart sank as bits and pieces of the evening filtered back into her mind. "My God," she whispered, horrified. "What have I gotten myself into?" She wrinkled her nose as the smell of alcohol and sweat hit her. "Ugh, I stink like the sewers," she thought, feeling a wave of embarrassment wash over her. Her mind raced. Who was that man? His demeanor, the way he carried himself, everything about him screamed power, like some kind of aristocrat. But was she overthinking things? Could he have an ulterior motive? She bit her lip, unsure of what to make of it. After all, a man who lived in a house this extravagant didn't need money, did he? Before she could finish her thought, his voice broke through her scattered musings. "Who are you?" she finally asked aloud, trying to mask her growing unease. He smirked, eyes gleaming as he sipped his wine. "Who am I?" He leaned back, casual, almost amused by her question. "How about you guess, pet?" Evangeline narrowed her eyes. "I don't have time to play guessing games," she shot back, trying to hold on to whatever shred of control she still had. But the man, unfazed by her attitude, continued to sip his wine with a grace that made her uneasy. "That's a shame," he said smoothly, his voice teasing yet full of an unnerving calmness. Her patience was wearing thin. Most people couldn't stand her directness. They either fled or recoiled. Yet this man, he seemed determined to linger, as if prolonging their conversation amused him. Why wasn't he annoyed like everyone else? "All right," he said suddenly, his voice dropping an octave. "I am the devil." Evangeline blinked. Was he serious? Was this some twisted joke? She studied him carefully, searching for any sign that he was mocking her. His expression didn't waver. "If you're not going to take me seriously, I'm leaving," she declared, standing up abruptly. But the man simply watched her with that same calm smirk. "I'm taking you very seriously, pet." Her pulse quickened. What's his angle? She wondered, growing more frustrated by the minute. "So you're saying that telling me you're the devil, is you being very serious?" She folded her arms, trying to hide the fact that her mind was still reeling from the strangeness of it all. "I'm not drunk anymore, so please be serious. Otherwise, just let me leave." He chuckled softly. All right, he said, as if humoring her. Gage Acheron. The name hung in the air like an unanswered question. Gage Acheron. Where had she heard that name before? It rang a bell, tugging at the back of her mind, but she couldn't quite place it. Gage Acheron, she murmured, testing the name on her tongue. Suddenly, a memory clicked, and her eyes widened. "Wait, Mr. Acheron," she stammered. I'm very sorry for what I did. I was drunk, and..." Evangeline's face flushed with heat as the full realization of her actions hit her. "My God, I really can't believe I did that," she whispered, burying her face in her hands. How embarrassing. Never in her life had she done anything so ridiculous. She cleared her throat, trying to regain some composure. I know you don't look like someone who's in dire need of money, she began awkwardly. But money is all I have to pay you for the inconvenience I've caused. Gage's eyes sparkled with amusement, his lips curling into a devilish grin. That will be problematic, pet, he said smoothly, taking another sip of wine. But since I'm the victim here, don't you think I should be the one to decide what kind of compensation I want? Victim? Evangeline repeated, her voice faltering. The word felt wrong. Asterisk was the victim? Gage, he corrected. All right, Gage, she said hesitantly. What is it that you want? He set down his glass and leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers with a predatory glint. I won't ask much, pet, he said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. I just want you to stay with me, in this house, until this bite mark and these hickeys disappear. Her eyes widened in shock. Double what? She stammered, her mind racing. Evangeline's mind raced, a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions colliding as she tried to wrap her head around Gage's outrageous proposal. What? She stammered, feeling a sense of dread wash over her. Wouldn't that take forever? Both bite marks and hickeys, after all, needed time to heal. Asterisk at least 7 to 10 days, maybe even 2 weeks. Asterisk. She blinked, the realization settling in like a heavy fog. And knowing him, he'll definitely drag it out for the entire 2 weeks. 14 days of this. A shiver ran down her spine. Asterisk, wait a moment. Is this man joking with me? Asterisk. Just as she opened her mouth to voice her disbelief, he continued, his expression unyielding. If you think that I am asking you to stay that duration so you can serve me in bed, then I'm sorry to disappoint you, but you're wrong, pet. Evangeline felt her face heat up, mortified. What? I'm wrong? So you're saying I'll just need to stay here until my bite marks disappear? His calm demeanor and the way he addressed her as pet made her feel strangely unsettled, as if she were caught in some bizarre game she didn't fully understand. Correct. You see, I'm in need of a companion, Gage said, leaning back slightly, a hint of mischief glinting in his eyes. What? The absurdity of it made her want to laugh. Was this man really just a lonely kid at heart, seeking companionship because he was home alone? My maid has run away, and I still need some time to look for a replacement. So since you're already here, he paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. Evangeline's jaw dropped as the realization hit her. So, you were actually planning to make me your temporary maid? The thought felt ludicrous. Was this man for real? Any more questions, Miss Eva? Don't tell me you're unhappy with my conditions. His voice was smooth, teasing, yet there was an undercurrent of seriousness that made her stomach churn. You're not going to tell me you would rather I bed you than have you stay with me and accompany me, are you? God damn it, Evangeline thought, grappling with the whirlpool of emotions in her chest. Why do I feel like this sly devil is tricking me? But deep down, she knew she didn't have a choice. What else could she do? She had not seen anyone else in this massive house except for him, and perhaps he really was alone, just as he said. All right, relax, Eva. Just calm down. No point getting your panties in a bunch. Let's go with the flow for now and stay alert. We can play it by ear, she advised herself, trying to suppress the rising panic. Good girl, Gage said, a smirk creeping onto his lips. Stop doing that. I'm not a child. Evangeline shot him a glare, irritation sparking in her chest. From this moment on, you're not allowed to leave this house until he paused dramatically. This thing here disappears. Damn, she felt the weight of his words crash over her like a wave. What had she just gotten herself into? All of this felt like an unfortunate coincidence mixed with her awful luck for running into such a beautiful and weird man, right? Right? As if sensing her thoughts, Gage's eyes narrowed slightly, making her wonder if he was reading her mind. Maybe, maybe not. This man definitely has motives I can't understand. He might just be stringing you along. Evangeline shook her head, berating herself. Asterisk, shut up. Are you an idiot? Asterisk, why would such a rich and handsome man even bother with her? He could have any goddess he wanted. Yet here he was, making her his temporary maid. Well, you have a point. Her inner voice retorted, but she was too frustrated to listen. With those old-fashioned glasses and cold attitude, I'd want you to shut up, she scolded herself, pushing back against the anxiety swirling in her mind. Keep quiet and let me think of a way out of this mess. Come over, pet. Gage's voice pulled her from her thoughts. Wait, don't you think first? She replied, attempting to keep her composure. Why? Well, I don't have any clothes with me, she said, realizing just how awkward the situation had become. I'll get someone to buy you everything you need for the time that you're here. What? Wait, I need clothes for a woman, she exclaimed, the absurdity of it all making her laugh nervously. Our bargain is already finalized, pet, he countered with an amused expression. I said you can't leave this place until these marks disappear. You agreed earlier. No reneging on your words, Miss Eva. He then gestured for her to go back to the room and take a shower, adding, I'll bring your clothes in a few moments. Come back once you're done. Because you stink, Eva. I think you really should shower first. Evangeline rolled her eyes, feeling a mixture of irritation and resignation. All right. It's time to speak with him for real. I must convince him to let me leave at all costs. Thank God, he was finally dressed. His ridiculously perfect body was distracting, and she had to keep her thoughts in check. I must not let him speak first this time, she reminded herself. My God, why now? As she made her way back to him, he handed her a set of clothes, his demeanor unexpectedly gentle. Where are these? What is he doing? She asked herself, feeling the heat rise to her cheeks. Didn't he make me stay as a replacement for his maid? Why is he? Anything wrong? He asked, his eyes glinting with mischief. And nothing. No, I don't have time to overthink. She forced herself to calm down. What he just did might be nothing to him. Get a hold of yourself, Eva. All right, come along with me. Pet, Gage said, ushering her out of the room. Now where is he bringing me? The question swirled in her mind, but she resolved to find the right timing to speak with him and convince him to let her go. When they entered the kitchen, Evangeline's heart raced. Oh gosh, he's probably going to make you cook. That's right. Why else would he bring me here, but to make me cook for him? But then the thought hit her. Oh my God, once he tastes your food, I can already imagine the horror on his face. Well, that's the plan all along, she thought, a mischievous smile creeping onto her lips. Once this handsome devil tastes my legendary awful cooking, he'll definitely throw me out. Easy escape, don't you think? All right, I will do this. Take a seat, Gage instructed, pulling out a chair for her. Wait, what? Please take a seat. Evangeline's eyes widened in disbelief. What the hell is going on? Aren't you supposed to order me to cook for you? She asked, confusion etched across her face. No, this can't be. I need to do something about this. I'll help. No, just sit there and watch, pet. What is going on? The situation felt surreal. Am I not supposed to be the one cooking as the temporary maid? She wondered aloud. Why did it become him ordering me to just sit here and watch while he cooks for me? Panic began to rise in her chest. Something's not right here. Oh gods. I really have no idea what is going on anymore. What exactly is he thinking? This devil is definitely suspicious. Yes, he definitely is. He has some other agenda. She fought to quell the panic in her heart. Why else would he act like this towards a stranger like me? The way he had given her that slipper earlier and now this. Who would do such a thing to a stranger acting cold towards him unless he had hidden motives? But then her rational side chimed in. Right, but you don't have a choice right now, Eva. You cannot afford to make a mistake and create another problem. Especially because this man looks to be filthy rich, judging from the mansion he lives in and his appearance. You, of all people, know just how crazy, extremely rich people can get when things don't go their way. I know that, and that's why I am being extra cautious right now about how I react to his actions, she reminded herself. Go on, dig in. This will be good for your hangover, Gage said, his tone now unexpectedly gentle. Evangeline sat there, bewildered. He had been watching her like she was an intricate puzzle the entire time he was cooking, and she found it unsettling. Asterisk, I'm sure you will see it if I put something weird in there. Damn. He noticed asterisk. How is it? Gage asked, his expression challenging. Trying to be serious. It's good. Damn you. How could you cook so good as well? A sigh escaped her lips. Asterisk, this is bad. I'm hungry, and this is probably the most delicious chicken noodle.